Hello everyone, I hope you guys are doing really well. My name is Julian and today in this video, try to dive deeper into some new concepts of SQL. So right now you're familiar with how we can use group by, how we can use order by, how we can fetch different columns from a table. So we'll try to dive deeper into some new concepts. But before we can get started with it, I would want you to meet one of my very close friends, Radhika. So Radhika, from her very early days, when I met her in school, she always wanted to have her own cozy coffee house, a warm, welcoming space where all the tech enthusiasts and casual visitors could sip handcrafted lattes while discussing databases or programming in general. So she always had this idea. After years of saving, I remember last year, she finally opened her own cafe called Brew Bikes, a charming cafe situated in the heart of the town. So her cafe was booming, and soon she found herself burdened by the customer's orders. She kept a digital record for every sale in that SQL database, hoping it would help her manage inventory, which actually did. So she used the database to manage inventory, track records, and serve her customers better. But one evening, as she sat down to review her order history, she noticed a problem. Her list of sales had grown too long. She tried running a simple query to fetch all the orders, but the results flooded her screen, making it nearly impossible for her to find out what she was looking for. And I still remember she reached out to me and she said that I can't keep scrolling endlessly through thousands of entries. So she was definitely frustrated and she needed a way to retrieve data in smaller chunks instead of being overwhelmed by everything at once. So you can also run into a situation where the amount of data that you're dealing with is quite big and you do not want to interact with every data that is present inside the database. And you want to limit the amount of data that you are interacting with. Let's take one example and understand this. So I've taken one example for you, a replica of what Radhika was facing. So I've created one table called orders, and this has 5 columns: ID, customer name, item, price, and order date. And after that, let's delete this. After that, we have called the insert statement so that there are different entries that are entered inside the database. And then we have used a select query for fetching the data from the orders table. All right. All right. So over here, we can see that we are getting the customer name, item, price, order, and their respective ID. And we can also see the orders that people have made on different occasion, different dates, like on 21st of April, 23rd of April. Like there are different dates, and on those respective dates, we have different orders. Let's just say if you have multiple orders, you have orders, let's say close to 100 orders, and you want to find the most recent orders. So for doing that manually, you will have to look through every entry inside this database, every entry inside this table, and you will have to check, and you will have to check the order date. And that is very cumbersome. That is very time consuming. So for doing that, what we can do is we can order our values. Now in this table, we can see that we have different orders that have been placed on different dates. This order is made on 20th of April. This is made on 24th of April. This is made on 28th of April. Right now, the entries that I've made, like they are in a sorted form. But let's say if the values were not in a sorted form and we want to have the recent orders displayed at the top and the older orders displayed at the bottom. So for doing that, we'll make use of order by, which I'm pretty sure that you're comfortable working with. So we'll order by the order date so that the newer entries appears at the top and the older entries appears at the bottom. So we can order by order date. All right. All right. So over here we can see like Jack with ID 10 has ordered matcha for himself on 29th of April. And then Bob and Alice, like they have made an order on 20th and 21st of April. So let's try to order this. All right. Order by date descending. All right. Okay. So now we can see that the newest orders are appearing at the top and the oldest orders, they are appearing at the bottom. All right. So right now, let's just say we do not want to get overwhelmed with a lot of data. We only want to focus on, let's say, the top 5 recent orders. Doing that, I remember I researched into SQL and I was introduced into one command, which was limit. Limit actually sets the amount of rows that we want to return. And let's just say I want to return the latest 5 orders. So like this statement, it will return this particular statement, it will return the latest orders. And out of those latest orders, I want to have the top 5 latest orders, as in the most recent 5 orders. So by making use of limit, I can limit the number of entries. I can limit the number of rows that are being returned. So let's try to run this. All right. So now we can see that instead of having multiple entries returned, I can limit the number of rows that I'm returning. So over here, since I've used limit 5, it is returning only 5 rows, like Jack, Ian, Hannah, George, and Fiona. So we are having only 5 entries returned. When Radhika reached out to me, I told her to start using limit when she is fetching the queries, which allowed her to fetch only few records at a time rather than loading the entire dataset. So instead of pulling everything, Radhika started using limit with his queries, and the command retrieved only the latest orders, making our data much more easier to handle. So let's just say if you had 100 rows or 200 rows, in those cases, by making use of limit, you can reduce the number of data that you're returning, and also it will help you in making your data much more manageable. Soon she ran into another issue. Fetching only the most recent orders was helpful, but what if she needed to review some past orders, perhaps like some orders earlier in the week? Scrolling back manually wouldn't work. So instead, she reached out to me, and let me tell you how I helped her. So let's go back to the example. All right, so over here, I've deleted the limit thing. So I've deleted the limit command. Let's try to run this once. The orders right now, they are ordered on the basis of the order date. Okay, so Radhika, what she was looking for, she wanted to see some older orders. So for doing that, I helped her with offset command. So what offset command does is that it skips the rows. So right now I'm trying to print all the orders on the basis of their orders date. Like the order which is the most recent, it is appearing at the top, and the order which is the oldest, it is appearing at the bottom. All right, so the first thing that I wanted to help her with was to limit the number of entries that are being returned. So let's say I wanted to have only like 4 entries that should be returned. And after that, I wanted to help her with only seeing older entries. So I wanted to help her skip the recent entries and only show the older entries. For doing that in SQL, we can make use of an offset command. Offset as in OFFSET. So this command actually helps us in skipping the rows. So let's say if I'm adding 5 as the offset, it will skip the first 5 rows and it will show me the remaining rows. So in this case, I've written that the remaining rows, like it should show us 4 remaining rows. So let's just say for this particular table, it will skip the first 5 entries, and then it will show us the remaining rows. And out of the remaining rows, I've written that I only want to see 4 rows. So it will show us these rows. Okay, let's try to run this. Okay, so we can see that we are having 5, 4, 3, and 2 returned as the answer. This way of fetching data from the database was extremely helpful. So it helped us in limiting the number of rows that we wanted to fetch. And it also helped us in skipping the initial values from the resultant table. So now instead of starting at the most recent order, SQL skipped the first 5 transactions and retrieved the next batch. So thanks to limit and offset, that Radhika was able to transform the way she handled her database. Orders were neatly managed instead of appearing in a massive list. And navigating through the past transactions was effortless. Her cafe data management also became smooth, efficient, and frustration-free. And I remember Radhika reaching out to me and telling me that who knew that SQL could make my life much easier. And now she was very confident that her system could handle it all. I hope you had a good time learning more about SQL commands. And hopefully you'll also be using limit and offset whenever you want to skip and limit the number of rows that you are returning. I hope you had a good time learning more about this. Thank you for joining, everyone.